What's up, everybody? It's your boy Hokage here. Welcome to the video. Today I'm going to review two episodes, and as always, whenever I upload like episode review video in which I review multiple episodes, the reviews tend to be pretty short because I don't want to make the video too long, and I'm usually very excited to watch the following episode. So for example, I just watched episode 152. I'm about to review it, and then I'm going to watch episode 153, and then I'm going to review it, and I want to watch it as soon as possible. So yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna get into the episode 152 review. I like the concept of this episode. I like that it emphasizes how important medical ninjutsu is. I like that we finally get an episode centered around Sarada exclusively. We haven't gotten an episode like that in a long time. And believe it or not, despite how bizarre this episode was, and up to a certain point in a good sense, but then when it became too bizarre or whatever, I had issues with it. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that despite all of this episode actually kind of did dive kind of deep into Sarada's character. Let me explain. So I don't think we ever saw this side of Sarada, this like extremely perfectionist side of Sarada. It was definitely hinted at, perhaps even stated at some point in the series, but this episode really showed it because, I mean, Sarada is one of the strongest genins out there. She's always been great at school. She wants to become the Hokage, and she has this perfectionist mindset, and this episode teaches her that she doesn't have to be perfect to become the Hokage, or she doesn't have to be perfect in general. And again, I like the lesson, but like I feel like, and I don't have an issue with this episode because it was this whole lesson was taught, not taught, but like displayed in like a comedic episode. That's not an issue, although perhaps it could have been better if it was a 100% serious episode. But it's okay if you take the comedic route, but when you make it cartoony, I mean, at that point it becomes a problem. I mean, I reviewed every single episode since episode 1, and I don't think I ever used this adjective for a Boruto episode, but at some points this episode felt like a cartoon. Like, you know, the crazy coincidences that were going on during the medical ninjutsu phases or whatever, it was literally like a cartoon. Like don't get me wrong, I loved this episode either way because, I mean, again, it was centered around Sarada. Sarada is one of my favorite Naruto characters. And I mean, just like her facial expressions, interactions, funny moments, you know, Boruto appearing in front of the windows, you know, little small details like this. I was laughing my ass off, but I gotta be objective. If I were to rate this episode exclusively based on my enjoyment, the rating would be much higher. But this way, I'm gonna give it a 6.8 out of 10. You know, it's not a horrible episode, but if it was just a little bit like, if it was less bizarre, like the rating would be like significantly higher. Like if it wasn't for those two crazy scenes with Iwabe, he apparently accidentally changed like the cups or whatever. What the fuck was that? And the other scene with the other dude, I don't even know his name. If it wasn't for those two scenes, if those two scenes were done a little bit differently, instantly the rating would be like at least 7.8 just off of that. And of course a few other things could have been better, but I mean, again, it literally felt like a cartoon at some point. So 6.8 out of 10. And the reason why it still has quite a few points, you know, 6.8, is because, again, I like the lesson. I like that it kind of, you know, it tells us more about Sarada as a character. Again, it was foreshadowed that she's like a perfectionist, I guess. Well, not like foreshadowed, that's a big word. It was like wasn't directly stated, I would say, but you know, hints were definitely there. And I'm not gonna analyze Sarada's entire character right now when it comes to the Boruto anime, but it was definitely there, and this episode cements it. And you know, I feel like because of the tone of the episode, you couldn't really, I guess you couldn't many people couldn't really understand that this was an actual psychological struggle that Sarada was, you know, pressuring herself, too much, unnaturally and all that. But again, some of these cartoony moments kind of didn't ruin the episode, but without them, the episode could have been better. I still laughed at a lot of scenes, but again, I feel like the episode could have been better. 6.8 for me, and I'm about to watch the next episode, and then I'm gonna review it. Okay, that was a much better episode in my opinion. Now, I remember when Tsubaki was introduced in episode 137, I believe. It was like a couple of episodes before the Mujina Bandits arc. I think it's 37, but don't quote me on that one. Anyway, I remember enjoying that episode. I really liked the idea of this like exchange student from the land of iron. I really liked it. And honestly, I don't know if I said it in the review back then, but my prediction was that we were probably never really gonna see Tsubaki again because I'm pretty sure she's an exchange student. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, we see how Team 15 further develops after Sumir's departure, and in the episode which I referenced a couple of seconds ago, Sumir pretty much left for the Ninja Tech department, right? Anyway, I'm a huge fan of this episode because it shows the character progression for Tsubaki. If you guys remember when she joined, she was strictly pro samurai, anti ninja, or whatever. I mean, as she met great people in Konoha, she slightly changed, and then in this episode, we see a completely different character. So that's nice character development there, character progression, whatever. She definitely matured. I mean, just a side note, her and like Fries, it was hilarious even before. But yeah, this episode it was just wonderful. Especially like I like the slice of life interactions with Boruto and the burgers, and I like how Tsubaki, through this like random event, managed to connect the dots later on and to realize how important teamwork is. I mean, of course, not only just because of burgers. I mean, it was also because of what was going on with the bandits and everything. But again, I just feel like it was a nice little blend of like serious stuff, the ninja mission stuff, and then like slice of life slash comedy stuff with the burgers and Boruto. I really like that. I think that was cleverly written. And similarly to the previous episode, this episode also has like a mini message, and the message is teamwork is very important. And I like the message. It's not like a super deep, complex message or anything like that, but nonetheless, it's still nice. And I feel like for what this episode wanted to do, it did like it did a perfect job in my opinion. Like I honestly think this episode was flawless, right? The purpose was to further develop Tsubaki's character, to show us how things are going on. Ever since Sumire left, we even had the interesting dynamics between Team 5 and Team 15, especially between Wasabi and Iwaba, and of course that's not surprising at all for anyone who's paying attention to Boruto, ever since the first episode. I mean, this is to be expected, right? And honestly, like I remember the first time we got like an individual episode for Wasabi, Sumire, and Amina. Like I really wasn't a fan of. I wasn't a fan of how that episode was done, the forced conflict between Wasabi and Amira. At least I felt as though it was forced, in my opinion. I remember back then thinking to myself, yeah, they're getting an episode. It's not like they're ever going to get an episode at all. Like, I was pissed off at that time. But ever since that episode, which I think was around episode 40, 50, something like that, correct me if I'm wrong, we got a few episodes here and there. I mean, of course, Wasabi and Namira, they're like side characters. Like, they're not like Shikarai, Inojin, and Chocho. They're not like side characters, but again, side characters. But still, it's nice seeing them grow, seeing them change. seeing, it's just a small detail, but seeing Namida doing her like screaming jutsu. I can't remember the exact name. Like I still remember when she was practicing it and when she was insecure, and now you see that she came a long way. So this was definitely satisfying. Again, I said this at the start of the video. Whenever I do multiple episode reviews in one video, I try to be short. Usually I'd go more in depth about this, but I really liked this episode. As I said, I think it was flawless for what it was trying to do. 10 out of 10 for me, and I can't wait to see the next episode, because according to that preview, the next episode is going to focus on Himawari, and I'm actually excited for that. Anyway, that was your Boruto no Hokage. Fantastic episode, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.